You are trapped by your emotions, and the shocking thing is that you don't know it. You think that silence is the way to overcome the hurt, that forgetting makes the pain go away, that pretending nothing is strong. But the hidden truth is, every emotion that is repressed becomes a karmic seed that quietly sprouts in your consciousness. When you refuse to feel, you don't avoid suffering. You just postpone it, only to have it rise again one day, stronger, more unexpected, more devastating. The Buddha doesn't teach you to run away. He teaches you to look straight, because what is run away from will keep coming back. As the Buddha himself said in the Samyutta Nikaya, nothing burns like the fire of repressed emotions. And this, modern science is starting to prove in surprising ways. Repressed emotions don't disappear from the body. They stay in chemical form, activating the amygdala, shutting down the prefrontal cortex, the area you use for clear thinking. So every time you pretend to be okay, you're poisoning yourself from the inside out. Ever wonder why you feel exhausted for no reason, or suddenly burst into tears over the smallest things? That's not sensitivity. It's a sign of a mind that has accumulated too many undigested emotions. Every sadness you deny, every anger you swallow, every time you say, "It's okay," when you're heartbroken, all of these are acts of emotional energy that are being held back, causing the mind to become confused and restless. Emotions are like clouds. You can't control them, but you can learn to let them pass without identifying with them. But you do the opposite. You embrace anger, you fear sadness, you deny fear. And so you turn yourself into an inner battlefield where each denied emotion becomes a sharp fragment. Another hidden truth that few people realize: when you deny your emotions, you also deny yourself. Emotions are not the problem. It's your resistance to them that causes you pain. You don't suffer from anger. You suffer because you force yourself not to be angry. You don't exhaust yourself from sadness. You exhaust yourself because you use all your energy to bury that sadness. The Buddha taught about feelings in the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Observe feelings as they arise, without clinging to them, without rejecting them. This is not empty philosophy. It is the method of liberation that he himself practiced under the Bodhi tree. Yet you, unconsciously, are going in the opposite direction by trying to forget. You used to think that if you stopped thinking about it, it would go away. But emotions do not obey logic. They are the ancient language of the soul, pre-linguistic, pre-thought. They do not need a reason to exist. They just need your presence. When you refuse to listen, they scream in other ways. Sleep disturbances, stomach cramps, a lump in the throat, or nameless anxiety. Every symptom is a message. Look at me. But you're busy with your phone, your work, your social media, all ways to avoid yourself. And the secret is, the more you avoid, the more dangerous your emotions become. Because what's been suppressed for too long has no words, it becomes action. You scream, you hurt others, or you collapse in silence. Not because you're bad, but because you're too full. There's a truth you've never been told. Emotions don't need to be explained. They just need to be felt. But you've been brought up to rationalize everything. Why am I sad? Why am I weak? Why can't I get over it? And it's this search for an explanation that doesn't need an explanation that leads you astray. It's like trying to explain the sound of a temple bell instead of listening to its resonance. In the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha says to know clearly when a pleasant feeling arises, when a painful feeling arises, when a neutral feeling arises. He doesn't tell you to understand. He just tells you to know. And in that knowing, emotions are liberated. Have you ever had a moment where you sat alone, feeling an emotion fully, without judgment, without trying to overcome it, without trying to do anything, simply being present with it, as if you were sitting with an old friend? If not, that's why you're stuck. Emotions are the gateway to yourself, but you've locked them away for so long. wondering why you feel so alienated from yourself. You don't need to rush to heal. You need to allow emotions to come, stay, and then go. Because like everything in the universe, they are impermanent. But the paradox is, only when you stop wanting them to go away do they begin to dissolve. There is a paradox that your mind does not want to accept. When you stop demanding, things begin to change. But that scares you. Because you are so used to controlling, you do not know how to let go. Your mind is like a sealed pond, seemingly peaceful, but underneath are countless stagnant emotions. Every time you refuse to be sad, you throw another rock into the bottom of the pond. And then there comes a time when just one drop of water is enough to overflow the bank. Not because you are weak, but because you have held it in for too long. The feelings of rejection do not go away. They find a way to come back in different forms: unreasonable anger, emptiness in the middle of the night, self-destructive decisions. You can pretend to others, but you cannot hide your own mind. And the Buddha warns of this in every sutra, every precept. The untamed mind follows suffering as the wheel follows the hoof of the ox that pulls the cart. You often think that being strong means not shedding tears, always smiling and moving forward. But that very definition is the chain that is suffocating you. True strength is when you dare to sit still with the most uncomfortable things inside you. It is when you look straight at your fear without retreating. It is when you admit, I am in pain, and that is also a part of me. Not to be a victim, but to stop separating yourself. Neuroscientists call this state emotional exposure, where you stop using rationality or avoidance to cope. In that state, the amygdala calms, cortisol decreases, and the parasympathetic nervous system is activated. You don't just feel better, you actually heal. You have learned to avoid pain because you think it will keep you safe. But what you don't realize is that every time you deny an emotion, you are reinforcing the illusion of separation. You create I am okay and I am hurt as two separate entities, and then try to eliminate a part of yourself. That is the opposite of the wholeness that Buddhism aims for. Your mind doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be rightly understood, right view, and seen without judgment, right mindfulness. In the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha emphasizes this when he instructs the practitioner. He clearly comprehends that this is feeling, whether pleasant or painful, and he clearly knows that it arises, persists, and passes away. Only when you witness this movement within yourself can you understand the nature of impermanence. There is a secret that most people who suffer are afraid to face. They do not suffer from emotions. They suffer from resistance. It is the saying, I am not allowed to feel this way. That is the root cause of your turmoil. Emotions, if received with awareness, always dissolve like mist in the morning sun. But when you build walls against them, you make them your own prison. And you know what happens in that prison? You start to dissociate. You can no longer fully experience joy because you've locked yourself away from sadness. Life feels bland, relationships become superficial, and you think it's because the world has changed. No, it's because you've closed yourself off. Think back to when you were a child. You cried, you got angry, you were sad, you laughed, all of it was natural. The emotions flowed freely like a river. But then, little by little, you were taught, don't cry, it's ugly. Don't get angry, it's unfilial. Don't be weak, be strong. And so, you started building dams to block that natural flow. As you grew up, you didn't know what to do with your emotions, except to suppress them or let them out. But both ways lead to suffering. The Buddha is not telling you to be indifferent. He is telling you to be aware of the emotions that arise, neither clinging nor resisting. Like someone watching a fire, neither rushing into it nor turning away, just watching with mindfulness. Modern neuroscience is beginning to reveal what Zen masters have known for millennia. Mindful observation of emotions actually changes the structure of the brain. The limbic system calms. The prefrontal cortex develops higher processing power. Long-term meditators even have thicker gray matter in the regions that control emotion and empathy. This is not just spiritual, this is biological. And you, every minute of meditation, every moment of looking deeply into the emotion instead of avoiding it, are changing your own brain. You move from fight or flight to presence. And in that presence, something magical happens. The emotion no longer makes you miserable, because you are no longer trying to make it something else. The real suffering is never in the feeling. It is in the belief that you should not be feeling. It is the thought, I should not be like this, that is the shackle. When you remove that, you will see that even sadness has beauty. Even anger is a cry for help. And even emptiness can become the space for something new to begin. Emotions, if you let them pass like clouds, will never break you. But if you hold on to them, deny them, or suppress them, you are trapped in a storm that should have passed long ago. But have you noticed that the more you try to control your emotions, the more they manipulate you from the shadows? Like a person shivering with cold trying to force himself to feel hot, denial makes the cold more piercing. When you ignore anger, it doesn't go away, but instead creeps into unconscious behaviors like a sharp glance, an unintentionally hurtful remark, or an outburst that makes you afraid of yourself. The Buddha taught in the Anguttara Nikaya that an untrained mind will drag you along like a bull with a lead nose. So why do you think that ignoring your emotions is the way to master them? The mystery is that repressed emotions do not go away. They accumulate as stagnant energy in the body and mind, and over time, they manifest themselves in dreams, nervous disorders, and even illness. Many modern psychological studies have confirmed this, showing that people who regularly deny their sadness or fear are more likely to have digestive problems, immune system problems, and sleep disorders. But this is not just a matter of biology. It is a subtle law of cause and effect. In Buddhism, any mental activity creates karma. And when you deny an emotion, you do not cancel that karma. You only push it deeper into the subconscious, where it runs silently but powerfully like a wheel of karma without brakes. You can't run away from what you've never seen. Emotions are like visitors knocking on your door. If you pretend you're not home, they'll grow patient, persistent, and come back when you least expect them. But if you open the door, invite them to sit down, and look at them like old friends and strangers, you'll find that they've come not to harm you, but to deliver a message. Fear can be a call to look at the unsafe places in your heart. Sadness can be a reminder that you are living in a way that is not what you really need. Anger can reveal where you have been deeply hurt. They are all signals. If you ignore them, you will never unlock the secrets they carry. A mindful practitioner does not try to push emotions away, but observes them as clouds in the sky of the mind. Not clinging, not pushing away. In that stillness, something magical happens. Emotions are released without forcing. As the Buddha said in the Dhammapada, a trained mind brings happiness. But training does not mean rigid control. It means letting go of resistance and allowing things to be, to slowly dissolve like morning dew when the sun rises. Here's a warning. If you don't learn to sit still with yourself, you'll be forever being chased by yourself. The memories you hate, the hurts you pretend to forget, will become ghosts that follow you from sleep to wakefulness. And the scary thing isn't how strong those feelings are. It's that you're too weak to feel them. But real strength isn't in running away. It's in being able to sit still in the storm without letting it consume you. That's when you begin to experience true freedom. Freedom from the need to avoid, to suppress, to pretend to be okay. The question for you is not, how do I get rid of this feeling? But what have I learned from this feeling? Because only when you stop running away can you begin to hear the hidden voice deep within. And that is where true healing begins. The more you try to bury your emotions, the more they grow silently in the dark, like seeds of anger and delusion hidden deep in your consciousness. Here's a shocking truth that most people ignore. Denied emotions don't go away, they just transform. Repressed anxiety can turn into skin disease. Repressed anger can give you chronic stomach pain. And unacknowledged sadness can gnaw at your heart in the long, lonely nights. The Buddha said, because of ignorance, sentient beings do not see the true nature of suffering. But ignorance is not just a lack of knowledge. It is a refusal to look directly at the truth of oneself. When you fear emotions, you are denying that truth. You are building an invisible wall between yourself and direct life experience. This is why you can never truly be at peace when you are running away from yourself. The paradox is that you think that denial will make you hurt less, but it actually makes you hurt longer, more slowly, like a fever that never goes away. The emotion is never the problem. The problem is your attitude toward the emotion. Modern neuroscience confirms that when you accept an emotion without judgment, brain activity changes. The amygdala, the center for processing fear, becomes less active. The prefrontal cortex, the seat of conscious behavior, lights up, meaning, by breathing in your sadness, you begin to heal yourself. But you've been trained by society to do the opposite, to smile when your heart is broken, to be busy to forget the emptiness, to act strong when your mind is exhausted. You live like a machine, and then you wonder why you can't feel real joy anymore. Life is knocking at your door every moment, but you are too busy closing all the windows in your soul. Remember, all emotions are waves on the surface of the lake. Nothing lasts forever. Buddha once asked, "One tear you shed for the sake of life and death, how many is enough?" So, when a pain arises, instead of panicking, you can whisper, "Hello, I know you are here." And then you just sit down, like the Buddha under the Bodhi tree, and you see, your emotions are not trying to kill you. They are just abandoned children, turning to seek the gaze of their awakened mother. And in the moment you stop running away, something magical happens. Fear dissolves in the light of mindfulness. You don't need to control your emotions. You just need to be present with them, like a bodhisattva, listening to the sound of suffering without judgment. Have you ever wondered, if emotions are not the enemy, then why do they make you suffer so much? The shocking answer lies in your clinging to the idea that I shouldn't feel this way. You don't suffer because of the emotion, but because you refuse to accept that you have it. In the Four Noble Truths, suffering lies not in the event, but in the mind's reaction to the event. And you reacted by denying. But denial is not the solution. It is the seed of continued suffering. It is the shadow of the mind, where you hide the parts you don't want anyone to see. And then, without knowing it, you are controlled by that shadow. The secret truth is, no one taught you how to feel emotions. You learned math, you learned languages, you learned job skills, but you never learned how to sit still and say, "I'm sad, and that's okay." So you feel lost, confused, and start acting like a robot, freezing your emotions to fit in with society. But you're not a robot. You are a human being with a river of emotions flowing through you every day. If you dam that river, it will overflow somewhere else, in irrational rage, in a panic attack in the middle of the night, or in a mental paralysis that makes you lose all sense of meaning. Emotions need to be transformed, not extinguished. Buddhism doesn't teach you to eliminate emotions, but to look deeply into their nature impermanent, selfless, and dependently arisen. When you truly understand that, you are no longer carried away by emotions. Instead of being controlled by fear, you see the emptiness of fear. Instead of being consumed by anger, you see the hurt behind it. And in that moment, you are no longer a victim, but a mindful observer. Imagine you are a room, and your emotions are the guests. Some guests come to make trouble, some to be quiet and sad. But if you send them away, they will come back and knock on the door, louder. If you let them stay without attachment, they will leave. In meditation, you learn to observe without judgment, and that opens up a new dimension of consciousness where you no longer need to fix anything, but can just be fully present. The final shocker: you can't heal if you're not honest. Honest with your feelings, honest with yourself, and honest with the past you've tried to forget. And sometimes, just sitting alone in silence, doing nothing, just letting your feelings flow like rain, that's the deepest meditation. In that state, there's nothing left to prove, nothing left to achieve. There's just real living happening. So stop running. Stop trying to be the strong, the positive, the perfect version of yourself. Just be you, all your vulnerability, all your weakness, all your truth. Because in that brokenness, the light begins to leak in, and you will realize you don't have to be perfect to heal. You just have to stop and feel. And then one day, you sit quietly in the darkness, not to hide, but to be. You no longer need the light from outside, because the light has begun to shine from within. Every emotion, no matter how strong or fragile, becomes a teacher. Anger teaches you about boundaries. Sadness teaches you about love. Loneliness teaches you about your deepest connection with yourself. And then, you no longer try to run away from them, but sit, like a practitioner sitting in the ocean of your mind, not fighting, not judging, just being present, just breathing. And strangely, in that quiet space, you hear a very soft laugh, your own, of a child who has not been loved for a long time. It is no longer a battle with emotions. It is a transformation. You do not have to conquer yourself. You just have to let go of all attempts to control and allow yourself to melt into the present. The less you try, the closer you are to peace. The less you want, the more complete you are. As the Heart Sutra says, form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. When you see that all emotions are unreal, but also not meaningless, you are on the middle path. And that middle path is the path of liberation. Try this today. The next time a strong emotion arises, do nothing. Don't try to change it. Don't try to deny it. Just breathe. Just put your hand on your heart and say, I am here, and this is allowed to be. If you do this long enough, you will see something shocking. You have never really been hurt by the emotion. What has been hurting you is your resistance to the emotion. When you no longer resist, you no longer suffer. And in that stillness, you realize what the Buddha saw under the Bodhi tree. There is nothing to fix, nothing to achieve. You are already whole. You only need to dare to stop, dare to look, and dare to love all that is present in you, even the broken pieces.